The United States and Iran have observed a ceasefire for over 5 weeks, but tensions are rising again. Iran has reportedly closed the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz, citing Israeli attacks on Lebanon as justification. Maritime traffic through the strait remains restricted despite conflicting reports from both sides. The U.S. insists the strait is open and demands its immediate reopening. Meanwhile, Iranian state media claims it is closed due to ongoing conflict with Israel. The situation highlights Iran's leverage over global energy trade through the Strait of Hormuz. International observers warn that the fragile ceasefire could be undermined if disputes over the strait are not resolved. As negotiations between the U.S., Iran and other nations begin this weekend in Pakistan, all eyes will be on how these tensions play out and whether this ceasefire can hold amidst ongoing regional conflicts. President Donald Trump clarified Wednesday morning that ongoing military strikes by Israel in Lebanon are not part of the ceasefire agreement between the U.S. and Iran. The president emphasized that Hezbollah's presence in Lebanon makes it a separate conflict distinct from the current peace deal. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt confirmed during a briefing that Lebanon is explicitly excluded from the ceasefire arrangement. She stated that Israel's military actions are viewed as essential for regional stability and security against militant groups like Hezbollah. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu echoed the stance in a statement supporting the U.S.-brokered ceasefire while assuring continued military operations against Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. This clarification underscores Israel's autonomy to act independently of broader diplomatic efforts with Iran. The president also discussed potential revenue sharing through the Strait of Hormuz. This suggests it as a way to secure and regulate maritime traffic. Specifics remain unconfirmed at this stage. These developments reflect complex geopolitical dynamics involving multiple actors and interests in the region. Israel launched a series of unannounced airstrikes on Lebanese targets yesterday evening. The IDF claimed the attacks were aimed at Hezbollah infrastructure and fighters who had moved beyond their usual areas. Reports indicate that over 200 people died and hundreds more were injured in densely populated urban areas. This includes children caught in the crossfire. Civilian buildings, shops, and public spaces bore significant damage during this widespread bombardment. Iranian state media responded by reporting missile launches into the Gulf area. The situation further intensified when Tehran warned it would re-enter the conflict if Israeli airstrikes continued, challenging the fragile ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran that was announced just hours prior. These strikes raise serious questions about the stability of recent diplomatic efforts in the region. Hezbollah's significant presence complicates matters, as its ties to Iran pose a strategic threat that Israel aims to dismantle through military action. With ongoing tensions and potential for further escalation, international observers are closely monitoring developments to assess the next steps and prevent broader regional conflict involving multiple countries with vested interests. Recent conflicts in the Middle East have halted significant energy production, with nearly 10 million barrels per day of oil currently shut down. Jason Bordoff, founding director at Columbia University's Center on Global Energy Policy, warns that recovery could take months. Attacks continue to undermine confidence in the region's infrastructure stability. Even with a fragile ceasefire, Bordoff notes that no one will restart production until long-term security is assured. This lack of certainty keeps oil prices high and may delay any anticipated drops in fuel costs for consumers. The situation underscores ongoing geopolitical tensions affecting global energy markets. Until these conflicts are resolved and infrastructure repairs completed, economic strain due to high fuel prices could persist. Bordoff's analysis highlights the critical need for sustained peace to restore Middle Eastern energy production and stabilize oil prices globally. Juan Chavez Velasco, a DACA recipient who has lived in the U.S. since he was 8 years old, was recently detained by ICE while on his way to deliver breast milk to his premature daughter at a hospital NICU near Houston, Texas, and he's been held in detention for 7 weeks. Velasco's arrest highlights broader concerns about the vulnerability of DACA recipients under current immigration policies. Since January 2025, over 260 individuals with DACA protections have been detained by ICE, with more than 80 facing deportation. That's despite having a valid DACA status at the time of his arrest and no criminal history. Velasco's status expired while he was in detention. His wife, Stephanie Villarreal, says there are worries about intentional delays in processing renewal applications as retaliation against DACA recipients. Legal challenges surrounding Velasco's case could set important precedents for how courts interpret DACA protections and due process rights for detained immigrants. His ongoing detention has raised questions about the enforcement practices of ICE and their impact on families. In Portland, Oregon, voters approved a climate and justice fund in 2018 aimed at investing in marginalized communities. Now, as the fund has grown to $1.60 billion, the city is debating how best to spend roughly $15 million currently up for allocation. Mayor Keith Wilson supports using part of this money to renovate Portland's Moda Center, arguing it will reduce emissions and support underserved neighborhoods like the Albina district. However, opponents argue that these funds should remain focused strictly on climate-related projects rather than being diverted towards large-scale infrastructure or other non-climate initiatives. Since its inception, the Portland Clean Energy Fund has provided critical assistance for energy-efficient upgrades in homes and supported various environmental initiatives aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Community leaders emphasize the importance of maintaining the fund's original purpose to address social and racial justice issues alongside climate change. The upcoming decision on how to allocate these funds will significantly impact local environmental efforts and community development. This underscores the need for a balanced approach that aligns with both economic and social priorities. Vice President J.D. Vance addressed reporters before leaving Hungary, emphasizing the complexities ahead in ceasefire negotiations with Iran. He noted that ceasefires are often messy and can be unpredictable. During his remarks, Vice President Vance also expressed skepticism about the English proficiency of Iran's parliamentary speaker Mohammad Bagher Kalibaf. "I actually wonder how good he is at understanding English," Vance said, pointing to inconsistencies in Kalibaf's comments during recent talks. Vice President Vance is scheduled to participate in ceasefire negotiations in Pakistan this weekend as part of ongoing peace efforts between the U.S. and Iran. The upcoming discussions aim to address disagreements on several key issues that have stalled progress. The Vice President's observations reflect the broader challenges in achieving stable ceasefires amid differing viewpoints and language barriers. This highlights the need for careful diplomacy going forward. The California Supreme Court has ordered Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco to pause his investigation into alleged election fraud and preserve seized ballots. The move came after Attorney General Rob Bonta requested court intervention, arguing that local law enforcement lacks authority over election materials. Over 500,000 ballots were involved in the sheriff's probe, which began following a complaint about irregularities in a November 2025 special election on redistricting. After seizing initial ballot materials and facing legal challenges, Sheriff Bianco had seized additional boxes of ballots before pausing his investigation last week due to mounting legal pressures. The court's action highlights the ongoing tension between local law enforcement and state authorities regarding jurisdiction over election materials. The dispute underscores concerns about election integrity and the proper handling of voting processes by county officials. With this order in place, any further actions related to the seized ballots must await resolution from California's highest judicial body as legal proceedings continue. Jim Whittaker, the first American to reach Mount Everest summit in 1963, has passed away at age 97. His historic climb marked a significant milestone and earned him celebrity status. This brings him into close ties with notable figures like Robert Kennedy. Whittaker's ascent of Mount Everest 10 years after Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay's first successful climb came to symbolize American prowess in mountaineering. Beyond Everest, he climbed Washington's Olympic Mountains as a Boy Scout and scaled Mount Rainier over 100 times throughout his career. A dedicated advocate for the climbing community, Whittaker was also known for leading an expedition of disabled climbers up Mount Rainier in 1981. This highlights both his accomplishments and his commitment to inclusivity. His work with outdoor retailer REI further cemented his role as a leader in the industry. Whittaker's legacy remains influential among mountaineers and nature enthusiasts alike. His dedication to climbing and advocacy for outdoor recreation leaves behind a lasting impact on those who follow in his footsteps. Texas health regulators are investigating hundreds of complaints against Camp Mystic, complicating the camp's efforts to reopen after last year's deadly floods. The incident resulted in the tragic deaths of 27 girls and 2 counselors when floodwaters rose rapidly within an hour. Since February, the Texas Department of State Health Services has received numerous allegations of violations during the summer of 2025. These complaints prompted the agency to seek assistance from the Texas Rangers, indicating a potential criminal investigation into claims of neglect. More than 850 families are eager for Camp Mystic to reopen this summer if a portion unaffected by flooding is deemed safe. Both victims' families and camp owners have cooperated with investigators, but have not commented further on pending inquiries. LT Gov Dan Patrick has urged state officials to prioritize safety. This emphasizes the need for thorough investigative findings before granting any license renewal. The involvement of the Texas Rangers underscores the seriousness of allegations regarding potential criminal negligence during the flood incident. As investigations continue, the future of Camp Mystic's reopening remains uncertain until full results are available and addressed by authorities involved in the case. A federal judge in Los Angeles sentenced Jasveen Sangha to 15 years in prison on Wednesday. Prosecutors described Sangha as the ketamine queen and linked her drug operation to Matthew Perry's fatal overdose in December 2023. Sangha was one of 5 individuals involved in supplying drugs that led to Perry's death, according to court documents. She pleaded guilty to selling ketamine directly to Perry days before his fatal dose. The judge emphasized Sangha's extensive history in drug distribution and the impact of her actions on victims like Cody McLaury, who died after using one of her products. Perry's family expressed deep sorrow over his untimely death. Meanwhile, defense attorneys argued for a lesser sentence due to her lack of prior criminal record. However, the judge cited Sangha's ongoing operations despite previous warnings as reasons for the lengthy sentence. The sentencing highlights the legal consequences faced by drug traffickers involved in fatal overdoses, particularly those targeting celebrities or high-profile individuals. Serial killer Rex Heuermann pleaded guilty this week to murdering 8 women on Long Island, bringing closure after a 13-year investigation. The plea came during a hearing at the Suffolk County Courthouse, where Heuermann admitted to luring sex workers with false promises and then killing them. The case has been marred by delays and initial missteps by police. Family members of victims have criticized the handling of the case. This suggests that the status of their loved ones as sex workers may have contributed to a lack of urgency from investigators. Heuermann, an architect and father of 2 who lived in Massapequa Park, was arrested after DNA evidence linked him to the crimes. The breakthrough came when police tied Heuermann to the murders through DNA found on a pizza box discarded at his Manhattan office. This admission brings relief for victims' families but also raises questions about why it took so long to solve the case. Asa Ellerup, Heuermann's ex-wife, said outside court that she understands the loss felt by the victims' families and expressed her condolences. The community of Massapequa Park is moving forward, eager to leave the past behind despite the recent media attention on Heuermann's childhood home. With this guilty plea, the case now focuses on legal proceedings, including sentencing, which will be formally handed down in June. 2 young men from Pennsylvania, Emir Balat and Ibrahim Kayumi, have been charged with attempting to detonate explosives near the mayor's residence in New York City during an anti-Islam protest on March 7. Prosecutors allege that the suspects aimed to kill up to 60 people as part of their support for ISIS. The indictment reveals that both Balat and Kayumi expressed allegiance to the Islamic State group, with written notes found in their vehicle indicating their pledge of loyalty. Authorities discovered a bomb along with materials to assemble homemade explosives and a notebook detailing bomb-making instructions inside the car used by the suspects. Dashcam footage also captured the pair discussing their alleged plans for terror attacks. in addition to the attempted bombing near Gracie Mansion. Prosecutors say the suspects had plans for alternative attacks involving the use of vehicles as weapons against crowded public events such as festivals or parades. This case highlights a growing concern regarding individuals who become radicalized through extremist ideologies disseminated online and attempt terrorist acts in major cities like New York. The significance of this incident lies not only in its immediate threat, but also in the broader context it provides for understanding the challenges posed by homegrown terrorism inspired by digital propaganda. Authorities are emphasizing the need to remain vigilant against such threats, underscoring the importance of continued monitoring and intervention strategies. CURRENTFSCTPSCK Authoritative U.S. President Donald Trump. New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani. ENDCURRENTFSCTPSCK